Hello everyone. I am so excited to lead into a fabulous month of March with the celebration of the International Women's Day, which is on March 8th. And that time of the year gives me an opportunity to reflect on my mentors, the leadership that I get from female in my medical community, the friendship that I'm surrounded with from my female friends. They build me up, they get me going, and they teach me so much. I like to surround myself with wonderful and successful women, and beautiful at that. And I have asked a wonderful, wonderful friend to join me today to talk about her experience and about her incredibly interesting podcast that focuses on interesting lifestyles in Atlanta. Not only women, but also very much female Atlantans. So Sarah Bentley Pearson, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
So glad that you've made the time to chat about your guests, your podcast, and your experience with accomplished women.
Well, I love people, and that's been something that is really, once I got married for the second time, I was standing in the shower and I just thought, what's next? And after the pandemic, I had been listening to so many podcasts and I just thought, I want to do this. I want to interview all these great people that I've been lucky to meet in Atlanta. And I think being an outsider like you are, you know, you come to Atlanta and it's a city that's sort of hard to see on the surface. The vibrancy is not like going to Paris or London or New York where you're like, it's just all there. But once you get into the city, you're like, wow, there's so many talented people here.
I agree, and I was so lucky that you were kind enough to extend your invitation to me. And talking to you on the podcast, we learned quite a bit about each other and about your experience in Atlanta and how it's grown. So I'd love for you to talk about the podcast in a little bit more detail. I brought this because I love this. This is such a great card. Sarah Styles Your Life, you know, and I think that you do talk about a lot of different things that are of interest to all of us. What are the typical topics that you usually talk about on the podcast?
Well, because I sell real estate, you know, I grounded myself in my interest in design and interiors. And so I started with Young Pak, who's a very well-known architect here in Atlanta. But I built on that, you know, from all my different interests. I mean, I have somebody who does hypnosis on there, and then interior designers and fashion designers and jewelry designers, as you know, Lisa Stein. And I just gathered this great network of people. I have interviewed a few people that just sort of came to me in different ways, but it really was built on that. And like with you, when I finally got to meet you in person, because I had heard of you for years, I connected with you. Like you, I like beautiful people too. Like my husband always laughs and says, is that a requirement? And I'm like, well, kind of, you know, I mean, it's not necessarily as superficial as that, but what are you bringing? What are you bringing to the table that's interesting?
I love that you said that, because I think that's what I really want to focus on. That beauty that we're so in tune with is so important. So talk a little bit about the women in particular, because this is in recognition of the International Women's Day. What were the women that you've met through your podcast that really got your attention, and why?
Well, it's funny you say that, because at the beginning of every year, I'm always thinking about the next year and what I want to accomplish. And I always think I want to inspire and be inspired. And I do surround myself with women that, you know, I always like to say that I'm the dumbest person in the room, you know, where these women are doing all these great things, and it isn't always about an accomplishment with work. You could be an excellent mother. You could be extremely fit. You know, what can I learn from you? That, you know, that's just my nature. I'm very curious about people, and I would say that, you know, I do love fashion. You know, Styles Your Life came from once I was asked to style some pretty reputable people here. And so it started with that, but it was, my podcast is Sarah Styles Your Life, the Southeast, because I want to focus on this region and all the talent that's here. But it's not really about style per se, it's like enriching your life. And I think that, Melanie Turner is a close friend of mine, and she's such an incredible talent. My best friend Lisa Stein, the jewelry, we're both wearing her jewelry, and I just love. I love when people, bring something that's like a God-gifted thing out into the world.
Yeah, I mean, I think that to me, what combines, and I went back and listened to many of your podcasts, and the creativity behind the women, the thoughtfulness, and awareness of the community. I think to me, I love what I do. I am very fortunate that many times these exam rooms become like little confession moments when we really talk about life, and I learn about my patients. That's extremely important to me. And what I learn about them is the creative spirit, their ingenuity. Every day I learn something from a patient, whether it's the book that they read, or the new exhibit that they've gone to, or somebody that they have met along the way that really influenced their life. When you think of female mentors, who are yours?
I mean, there's so many. I mean, we could even, at the time I didn't realize it, but it was my mother. My mother had traveled around the world twice before I was born.
Yes,
and, growing up then in Berlin and being around, I remember the German DCM's wife. I remember her talking about if there was a fire and what would she grab and which would she keep, and she was very well dressed, and she said all of her accessories. It's like all these funny things that change you, and I think that the needle and the thread around all that is travel. And I think you growing up in Poland and me in East Berlin, that we shared that. And then I think Atlanta has so many people that aren't from here.
Yes.
And those are typically the people that I'm most drawn to.
Yeah, I think that I engage in a lot of interesting conversation. Atlanta does seem to pull a very international group. You don't see that right away. I agree with you. I've lived in the city for many, many years now, so you learn where to find each other. But it definitely pulls a very interesting and diverse group, and I think that is represented in many of the organizations that women gather, many of the charitable ideas that we share. Is there anything in particular that really inspires you? I know that you've been doing working on a very interesting project. You've been dancing.
Yeah, Dancing with the Stars, Dancing Stars of Atlanta, which benefits the Alzheimer's Association. I was lucky enough to go to a few of them, and then I said to myself when I was talking about my New Year's resolutions that I wanted to challenge myself. So this is new, learning to dance. It's not really like my thing, but again, kind of going back to my past and my traveling as a little girl. My parents were kind of from another era, and being diplomats, they were kind of fancy people, and we would go see all the Fred Astaire movies, and so we would dance around in our leotards and our top hats and
Ginger Rogers.
Yeah, so I'm channeling
awesome.
Ginger Rogers for this, and it's I love the dancing part. The asking for money is just not that's not sparking joy for me, but I'm doing it, and it's for a good cause.
I think that is so awesome. I mean, again, inspired great women, and there are some male participants, I understand, as well. So I think that's terrific. You're showing your talents, or growing your talents maybe in a way, and really helping along. And of course, to me, I love when I get involved. I love to combine the medically focused charitable groups, and then of course when they bring a little bit of art and entertainment to it, that's a great plus as well.
Yeah. And it's interesting about Atlanta, just looking at you and knowing you're such like an intellect and a smart person, but yet there's still the glamour aspect to you. And I think that's very Southern. When I moved to Atlanta, I felt like, wow, the women are really put together here, and they're really kind. And so even though I say a lot of my friends aren't necessarily Southern, it feels like it has that sprinkling of just hospitality and beauty, and people in their homes too really take a lot of care with their homes. And growing up in Washington D.C., it was all about how smart you were.
Yeah.
Whereas the South is different.
Well, I think that, we love to be the combination of all, and I think that there's a little bit of the genteel approach in the South that I think it's lovely. My European soul definitely responds to that. I think that's wonderful. I know that you work in real estate.
Mm-hmm.
How is Atlanta changing from that standpoint?
It's changing a lot, actually. When you drive into Atlanta and you go into Tuxedo Park, you're kind of in awe a little bit of its beauty. But in general, I felt like the architecture was poor when I first moved here, except for some of these standout communities.
Right.
Now I feel like the architecture is elevating. The price points are getting higher. We have more people moving in from other areas. The art is getting better. The homes are getting better. And it's just becoming more dense. And I think a lot of people think that, Atlanta, what's Atlanta? But, there are some really fine homes here. And I love going into a beautiful home and seeing the details. It's really about the details.
Yeah, I think that's, as you mentioned, some of your friends are so in tune with the interior design and decorating. I'm sure you get to hear great stories about that as well. So is the trend in Atlanta now kind of living a little bit more urban, or people moving out to suburbs? Or are you seeing
It's a combination of both. I mean, during COVID, a lot of people were sort of moving farther out. So areas like at Milton, you wouldn't go to 30 years ago, are really growing with some nice architecture. But then there is more the urban, live, work, walk to things aspect too. I think we have something for everybody now. And I think what I was really impressed by when I moved to Atlanta is that we have ADAC right here. And then we have Howell Mill and that whole area. And if you like to do homes, there's a lot of resources here. Whereas other cities, it's kind of tucked away only for designers. But I think that is something that's special to Atlanta.
I mean, I think that probably goes along with you already saying that women like to look very put together. I think they want their homes to look fantastic as well.
And their gardens.
Yes.
People really take good care of their gardens. And I've been lucky enough to have John Howard on my podcast, who is amazing.
And he's a true visionary.
Yes, and Keith Summerhour and all these, and Beth Webb, and just there's all these resources to live well here.
Well, I think that may be the theme of living well and connecting with great women, just like we have. I think that I really cherish what you've shared about being creative, challenging yourself. I think these are important elements to growth. My word for 2024 is advancement. So even though this has been a 30-year-old career now, I still like to think forward and grow and add on and learn from wonderful friends, new and friends that I've already had. So Sarah, I'm so glad.
Well, thank you. And I just want to say one thing while you're saying that advancement, being the age that I am in my 50s, when I was in my 40s, I started really meeting women that were doing great things that were maybe 20, even 30 years older than me. And I noticed the ones that were happy were they were growing.
Yeah.
And I think that is the key to happiness, is to grow.
What a great message to end with. So let's keep growing, let's keep advancing, let's keep challenging ourselves, and definitely listen to the podcast because it is terrific.
Thank you so
much.